I was folding laundry in my bedroom on a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. A woman's voice, young and smug, said, "Hi, is this Lorraine? This is Jasmine. I'm calling to let you know that your husband and I are in love, and he's planning to leave you for me. I just thought you should hear it from me first." She said it like she was doing me a favor, like she was being gracious by informing me that my husband of 32 years was trading me in for a newer model. But here's the thing. I'd known about Jasmine for 3 months. What she didn't know was that I also knew about Tanya, Brianna, and Destiny. My husband wasn't leaving me for her. He was juggling 4 different women, promising each of them a future, financing their lifestyles with money from our joint accounts, and lying to all of us. So instead of crying or begging, I said, "Jasmine, honey, I appreciate the call, but before you make any plans with Vernon, you should probably know about Tanya, the 28-year-old dental hygienist he's been seeing for 2 years, and Brianna, the personal trainer he bought a car for last year, and Destiny, his business associate, who he takes on international trips. You're not special, sweetie. You're number 4. My name is Lorraine Mitchell. I'm 56 years old, and this is the story of how my husband's mistress accidentally became my ally, and how 4 betrayed women teamed up to dismantle the life of a man who thought he was too clever to get caught. Vernon and I met when we were both 23, working at the same telecommunications company in Atlanta. He was in sales. I was in customer service. We dated for 2 years, got married in a small ceremony at my parents' house, and built what I thought was a solid life together. We had 2 children, Marcus, now 29, and Shayla, now 26. Vernon climbed the corporate ladder aggressively, eventually becoming regional vice president of sales, making $185,000 a year. I worked part-time as a medical billing specialist, making $42,000, allowing me to be home when the kids were young, while still contributing financially. For 32 years, I believed we had a good marriage. Not perfect. Vernon traveled constantly for work, sometimes gone 3 weeks out of every month, but solid. He was charming, successful, attentive when he was home. He remembered birthdays and anniversaries. He told me he loved me. He was, I thought, a devoted husband and father. I was so incredibly wrong. The first crack in my illusion came 18 months ago when I was looking for our insurance documents in Vernon's home office and found a credit card statement for an account I didn't know existed. The charges were shocking. $3,200 at a jewelry store I'd never been to. $1,800 for a weekend at a luxury hotel in Miami when Vernon had supposedly been at a sales conference in Dallas. $950 for lingerie from a boutique, none of which had ever appeared in my drawer. $4,500 for a down payment on a car lease in someone else's name. I sat at his desk, hands shaking, staring at $47,000 in charges over 6 months on a credit card I'd never seen. Charges that had nothing to do with me, our home, or our life together. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I did what any woman with 32 years invested in a marriage would do. I investigated. I created a fake email account and started tracking his movements. I checked his phone records. I looked through his other credit card statements. I hired a private investigator named Darius Webb, who cost me $3,000, but gave me information worth infinitely more. Darius's report, delivered 6 weeks later, was devastating. Vernon wasn't having an affair. He was having 4 affairs simultaneously, each with a different woman in a different city. Tanya, 28, lived in Charlotte. She was a dental hygienist at a practice Vernon visited when he had a dental emergency during a business trip 2 years ago. According to Darius's surveillance, Vernon saw her twice a month, told her he was separated from me and waiting for his divorce to finalize, and had been paying $100 and $200 a month toward her student loans for 18 months, $21,600 of our money financing her debt. Brianna, 31, lived in Birmingham. She was a personal trainer Vernon met at a hotel gym. He'd bought her a $32,000 Nissan Altima last year, telling her it was an early birthday gift because he couldn't stand seeing her struggle with that old car. He saw her once or twice a month when he had client meetings in Alabama. Destiny, 35, lived in Nashville. She worked in pharmaceutical sales and traveled frequently, which made her the perfect business associate for Vernon to meet in various cities. They'd been involved for 3 years, Vernon had told her he was divorced and had taken her to conferences in Las Vegas, Miami, and San Diego, trips I'd believed were legitimate business travel. He'd spent approximately $38,000 on her over 3 years, and Jasmine, 24, lived right here in Atlanta, 20 minutes from our house. She was a bartender at an upscale restaurant Vernon frequented for client dinners. She'd been in the picture for 8 months. Vernon had paid 3 months of her rent, $3,900 when she was struggling financially, and bought her a $2,800 laptop for her online classes. The total financial cost of Vernon's 4 simultaneous affairs, approximately $103,000 over the past 3 years. Money that came from our joint accounts, his hidden credit cards and cash advances I'd known nothing about. But the financial betrayal wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was reading Darius's transcripts of conversations he'd recorded, hearing Vernon tell each of these women the same lies. My marriage has been over for years. My wife and I are just staying together for appearances. You're the only one who truly understands me. Once my kids are settled, we'll be together forever. 4 women, 4 sets of promises, 4 completely fabricated futures, and 1 wife who'd spent 32 years believing she knew her husband. I didn't confront Vernon immediately after getting Darius's report. I was 54 years old, terrified of divorce, terrified of being alone, terrified of what it would mean to blow up my entire life. So I did something I'm not proud of. I pretended everything was fine while I planned my next move. I consulted with a divorce attorney named Patricia Hendricks, who was recommended by my friend Wanda. Patricia was in her 60s, sharp as a blade, and specialized in high-asset divorces where infidelity was involved. "Lorraine," she said, after reviewing Darius's report, "your husband has dissipated marital assets, spent significant joint funds on extramarital affairs. In this state, that means you're entitled to a larger share of the marital estate. We're talking about potentially 60-70% of everything, plus alimony, plus he'll likely have to reimburse the marital estate for the $103,000 he spent on his girlfriends. Can we prove all of this? With this investigator's report? Absolutely. Bank records, credit card statements, receipts, surveillance photos, recorded conversations. This is a goldmine of evidence. Your husband was arrogant enough to think he'd never get caught, so he didn't cover his tracks well." I left Patricia's office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Powerful. Vernon had made me feel invisible, insignificant, easily replaced. But I had evidence. I had the law on my side, and I had time to plan my strategy. I spent the next 3 months preparing. I opened my own bank account at a different bank and started transferring money from our joint account, small amounts that wouldn't trigger Vernon's attention, but enough to build a safety net of $8,000. I made copies of every financial document in Vernon's office. I documented every business trip and cross-referenced it with the credit card charges. I built an airtight case, and then Jasmine called me. When she introduced herself and told me Vernon was leaving me for her, my first instinct was anger. How dare this 24-year-old child call me and gloat about stealing my husband? But then I realized something. Jasmine didn't know she was one of 4. She genuinely believed she was special, that Vernon's promises to her were real. So instead of hanging up or crying, I decided to blow up Vernon's entire operation. "Jasmine, honey, I appreciate the call," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But before you make any plans with Vernon, you should probably know about Tanya, the 28-year-old dental hygienist he's been seeing for 2 years. And Brianna, the personal trainer he bought a car for last year. And Destiny, his business associate, who he takes on international trips. You're not special, sweetie. You're number 4. The silence on the other end was profound. Then, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that my husband is a serial cheater who's juggling 4 different women in 4 different cities, telling each of you that you're the love of his life while he's still very much married to me and living in our house every night. He's not with one of you. You're lying. Vernon wouldn't. He told me he was separated. He told you what he tells all of them. He's not separated, Jasmine. He comes home to me every week. We share a bed. We share finances. We share a life. You're just the Tuesday and Thursday night entertainment when he's supposedly working late. I don't believe you. Fine. Don't believe me. But maybe you should call Tanya at this number. I rattled off Tanya's phone number, which I'd gotten from Darius's report. Or Brianna at this number. Or Destiny at this number. Compare notes. See if Vernon told all of you the same lies. I bet he did. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uncertain. Why are you telling me this? Because Vernon has been lying to me for years, spending our money on women who don't even know they're sharing him. And I'm done being the only one who's hurt by his betrayal. If he's going to destroy our marriage, he's going to face consequences from all of you, not just me. I hung up and sat there, heart pounding, wondering if I'd just made a terrible mistake or a brilliant strategic move. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Lorraine? This is Tanya. Jasmine just called me. She said you know about Vernon and me. Is it true? Is he seeing other women? Tanya's voice was small, hurt, nothing like the confident mistress I'd imagined. She sounded young, confused, betrayed. Yes, Tanya. It's true. Vernon has been seeing you, Jasmine, Brianna, and Destiny simultaneously for years. He's told each of you that he's separated or divorced from me. He's not. We're still married, still living together, still sharing a life. At least we were until now. Oh my God. Her voice cracked. He's been paying my student loans. He said it was because he loved me and wanted to help me build a future together. He said once his divorce was final, we'd get married. Was that all a lie? Every word of it was a lie, Tanya. I'm sorry. She started crying. I feel so stupid. I believed him. I thought he loved me. He doesn't love anyone but himself, and he's about to learn that there are consequences for treating people like disposable entertainment. That evening, my phone rang again. Brianna this time, then Destiny. All 4 of Vernon's girlfriends calling me, comparing notes, realizing they'd all been lied to. The conversations were surreal. Me, the wronged wife, consoling the mistresses who'd been wronged almost as badly as I had. But something unexpected happened during those conversations. We got angry, not just at Vernon, but on behalf of each other. These women weren't homewreckers who'd knowingly pursued a married man. They were women he'd lied to, manipulated, and used. On Thursday evening, 3 days after Jasmine's initial call, I did something crazy. I invited all 4 of them to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. I had no idea if they'd show up, but I sent the text. If you want to make Vernon pay for what he's done to all of us, meet me at Java Junction tomorrow at 2 p.m. They all came. Sitting in that coffee shop with 4 women who'd been sleeping with my husband was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. Jasmine looked exactly like I'd imagined. Young, pretty, wearing too much makeup and an outfit that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Tanya was softer, more professional in scrubs from work. Brianna was athletic and intimidating in gym clothes. Destiny was polished, corporate, closer to my age at 35. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then Destiny said, "This is the weirdest book club I've ever been to." We all laughed, and the tension broke. "Ladies," I said, "we've all been lied to and manipulated by the same man. He's stolen money from me, stolen time and emotions from all of you, and he thinks he's gotten away with it. I want to make him face consequences. But I can't do it alone. I need your help." "What kind of help?" Brianna asked suspiciously. "Evidence, documentation, anything that proves Vernon lied to you about our marriage, anything that shows money he spent on you, any text messages or emails where he made promises he never intended to keep. I'm filing for divorce, and I want to take him for everything he's worth. But more than that, I want him publicly exposed for the liar and cheat he is." Tanya pulled out her phone. "I have 2 years of text messages where he calls me his future wife and talks about our life together after his divorce. Jasmine showed me Venmo receipts. He sent me money every month for rent. Told me it was because he loved me and didn't want me to struggle. Brianna had the car title. He put the Altima in my name. Told me it was an early wedding gift. Destiny had photos from their trips together. We've been to 6 cities together. He told everyone at the conferences I was his colleague. In the photos at dinner, we're clearly a couple. I looked at these 4 women, each deceived, each hurt, each angry, and realized we had everything we needed to destroy Vernon's carefully constructed lies. "Here's what I propose," I said. "We pool all this evidence. I give it to my divorce attorney, who will use it to prove Vernon dissipated marital assets on affairs. But I also think we should expose him publicly. He's a regional vice president at a major company. He's built his reputation on being a devoted family man. Let's show everyone who he really is. Won't that hurt you too? Tanya asked. The humiliation of everyone knowing I'm already humiliated, I interrupted. The difference is I'm the victim here. Vernon's the villain, and I'm tired of protecting his reputation while he destroys my life. We spent the next 2 hours strategizing. Destiny, who worked in corporate environments, suggested we document everything and send it to Vernon's HR department. Companies didn't like executives using company funds or company time for personal affairs, and she suspected Vernon had crossed that line. Brianna suggested we create a shared document with all our evidence, so we could all contribute. Tanya, bless her heart, suggested we also tell his mother, a judgmental woman who'd always prided herself on her son's character. By the time we left that coffee shop, we weren't just 5 women who'd been wronged by one man. We were a team, an alliance, a force. I went home that evening to an empty house. Vernon was in Birmingham, presumably with Brianna, though now she'd texted to say she was sick and couldn't see him. I sat at the kitchen table and thought about 32 years of marriage, 2 children, a life built on what I'd thought was love and trust. Then I called Patricia, my attorney. I have everything you need. 4 mistresses willing to testify, documentation of every affair, proof of dissipated assets, and evidence that Vernon lied to all of them about being divorced. When can we file? How about Monday morning? Perfect. That weekend, while Vernon was gone, I packed his belongings. Everything. His clothes, his toiletries, his golf clubs, his office supplies. I boxed it all up, labeled it clearly, and stacked it in the garage. I changed the locks on every door. I closed our joint accounts and opened new ones in my name only. I canceled his credit cards that were linked to our accounts. I was burning down 32 years of marriage, and it felt like freedom. Vernon came home Sunday evening, exhausted from his business trip. He tried his key in the front door. It didn't work. He tried again, confused. Then he knocked. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Your things are in the garage. You'll be served with divorce papers tomorrow morning. You're not welcome in this house anymore. His face went through several expressions: confusion, anger, disbelief. Lorraine, what the hell? What's going on? What's going on is that I know about Tanya, Brianna, Destiny, and Jasmine. I know about the $103,000 you've spent on them over 3 years. I know about the lies you've told them and me. I know everything, Vernon. And you're done. He tried to push past me into the house. You can't just lock me out of my own house. It's not your house anymore. I've consulted with an attorney. You've dissipated marital assets on extramarital affairs, which means I get the house, plus a much larger share of everything else. The divorce papers will explain it all. Now get your things and leave, or I'm calling the police. Lorraine, let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You're a liar and a cheat. You've betrayed me with 4 different women while pretending to be a devoted husband. You've stolen from our marriage to finance your affairs. There's no coming back from this. You're overreacting. So I made some mistakes. The word came out as a bitter laugh. Vernon, you've been living a quadruple life for years. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And now you get to live with the consequences. I closed the door in his face and locked it. I heard him shouting, threatening to break in, but I called the police and reported an aggressive ex-spouse at my door. They escorted him away with his boxed belongings. I slept in my bed alone that night for the first time in 32 years, and I slept better than I had in months. The divorce papers were filed Monday morning. Patricia was ruthless in her petition, detailing every affair, every dollar spent, every lie told. She included statements from all 4 mistresses confirming Vernon had lied about being separated or divorced. She included the private investigator's report with surveillance photos, financial records, and documented proof of his deception. Vernon's response was to hire an expensive attorney and claim I was lying, that the mistresses were fabricating stories, that I was exaggerating to get a better settlement. So we released everything publicly. Destiny created a Facebook post detailing her 3-year affair with Vernon, including photos from their trips together and screenshots of him calling her his soulmate while he was still married to me. She tagged Vernon, his company, and several mutual professional contacts. Brianna posted on Instagram about the car Vernon had bought her under false pretenses, showing the title and screenshots of him promising to marry her once his divorce was final. Tanya created a TikTok series about dating a man who claimed to be divorced, but was actually still married, documenting the $21,600 in student loan payments he'd made from marital funds. Jasmine called Vernon's mother and told her everything. The affair, the lies, the other 3 women. And I sent a detailed email to Vernon's HR department outlining how he'd used company travel and expense accounts to facilitate his affairs, including charging personal expenses to his company card that were later reimbursed with marital funds. The fallout was spectacular. Vernon's company launched an internal investigation. Within 2 weeks, they discovered he'd falsified several expense reports, claiming personal dinners and hotel stays as client entertainment. He was suspended pending a full audit. His mother called me, apologizing profusely and saying she'd raised him better than this. She offered to testify on my behalf in the divorce proceedings. His colleagues and friends, who'd always seen Vernon as the epitome of success, started distancing themselves as the truth emerged. His reputation, which he'd spent decades building, crumbled in days. The 4 mistresses, meanwhile, had formed their own support group. They met regularly to process their feelings about being deceived. They'd gone from competitors for Vernon's affection to allies in holding him accountable. It was the strangest sisterhood I'd ever witnessed, but it was real. Vernon tried to control the narrative. He claimed I was vindictive, that the mistresses were scorned women making up stories, that the financial records were misinterpreted. But we had too much evidence. Bank statements don't lie. Credit card records don't lie. Text messages don't lie. Surveillance photos don't lie. The divorce proceedings took 8 months. Vernon fought every step, trying to minimize his financial responsibility, claiming the affairs hadn't affected our marriage, laughable, arguing that he shouldn't have to reimburse the marital estate for money he'd spent on relationships that brought him happiness. Patricia demolished him in court. She presented 3 years of financial records showing $103,000 in dissipated assets. She brought in Tanya, Brianna, and Destiny to testify that Vernon had lied about being divorced. She presented evidence that he'd used marital funds for personal affairs while I'd been managing our household on my modest income. Judge Harold Thompson, a stern man in his 60s, looked at Vernon with undisguised contempt during the final hearing. "Mr. Mitchell, you've conducted yourself with stunning dishonesty. You've betrayed your wife, deceived multiple women, and stolen from your marriage to finance a lifestyle of deception. This court finds that you dissipated marital assets willfully and maliciously. The judgment was everything Patricia had predicted. I got the house, worth $425,000, 65% of Vernon's retirement accounts, approximately $340,000, and alimony of $3,800 per month for 10 years. Vernon was also ordered to reimburse the marital estate $103,000 for the funds he'd spent on his affairs, paid at $2,000 per month until satisfied. Vernon left that courtroom a broken man financially and reputationally. He'd lost his job due to the expense report fraud. He'd lost most of his retirement savings. He'd lost his reputation. And he'd lost any claim to being a victim. The 4 mistresses moved on with their lives. Tanya went back to school and eventually became a dental office manager. Brianna opened her own fitness studio. Destiny got promoted at her company and started dating someone who was actually divorced. Jasmine went to community college and eventually transferred to a university. We stayed in touch, occasionally meeting for coffee or texting to check in. Our shared experience with Vernon had created a bond that transcended the weird circumstances that brought us together. My children, Marcus and Shayla, were devastated by the divorce initially, but came to understand as they learned the full extent of their father's deception. Marcus stopped speaking to Vernon for a year. Shayla maintained minimal contact. Both of them told me they were proud of how I'd handled the situation. 2 years after the divorce, I was sitting in my sunroom, the one I'd renovated with part of the settlement money, reading a book when my phone buzzed. A text from Destiny. Vernon got remarried to a 26-year-old he met at a bar. Thought you should know. I stared at the text, waiting to feel something. Anger, jealousy, regret, but all I felt was pity. Pity for the 26-year-old who didn't know what she was getting into. Pity for Vernon, who clearly hadn't learned anything. Pity for the cycle that was probably already beginning again. I texted back, "Poor girl. Should we warn her?" Destiny. Nah. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. We learned ours. She was right. We'd all learned our lessons. Mine was that 32 years of loyalty doesn't protect you from betrayal. That sometimes the person you trust most is the person deceiving you most completely. That you can build a life on lies and not realize it until the foundation crumbles. But I also learned that women, even women who've been pitted against each other, can become powerful allies. That exposure is sometimes the best revenge. That starting over at 56 isn't the end of your life. It's the beginning of a better one. I'm 58 now, 2 years after the divorce that ended my 32-year marriage. I live alone in my house, which I've redecorated to remove all traces of Vernon. I've traveled to places I always wanted to see. I've made new friends through volunteer work and book clubs. I've discovered who I am outside of being Vernon's wife, and I'm happy. Genuinely, surprisingly happy. The $103,000 Vernon dissipated on his affairs has been slowly coming back to me through court-ordered reimbursements, $2,000 per month, which will continue for several more years. I put it in a separate account and occasionally donate portions to organizations that help women leaving abusive relationships. Because financial infidelity is abuse, even if people don't always recognize it that way. I still see the 4 mistresses occasionally. We have a group text where we share memes about terrible men and celebrate our personal victories. Last month, we all met for dinner to celebrate Tanya completing her management degree. It was surreal and wonderful. 5 women brought together by one terrible man, now supporting each other through life's challenges. Vernon lives in a small apartment, works in middle management at a company that doesn't know his history, and by all accounts is already repeating his patterns with his new young wife. Some men never learn, some men never change, but that's not my problem anymore. My name is Lorraine Mitchell. I'm 58 years old, and I have learned that betrayal can come from the person you trust most. That 32 years of loyalty means nothing to someone who's been lying the entire time. That the women you think are your enemies can become your greatest allies. And that sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting someone back, it's exposing their lies and watching their carefully constructed facade crumble under the weight of truth. If you've been betrayed by a partner who's living a double or triple life, please know you're not alone. Document everything. Find allies wherever you can, even in the most unexpected places. And remember that exposure and accountability are powerful tools for justice. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have teamed up with the mistresses or handled it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. Please like and subscribe for more stories about betrayal, revenge, and rebuilding after devastation. Your support helps these stories reach people who need them. Remember, you deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve a partner who's committed to you, not juggling multiple lives while pretending to be faithful. And when you discover you've been lied to, you have every right to burn down the lies and build something better from the ashes. With hard-won wisdom and unexpected sisterhood, Lorraine.